Hello, I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Brianna Jones.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew and Bree to like musical theater. And guys, we have an extra special guest. I'm really excited.
Very special guest.
Very special guest. Please welcome the host of the Movie Chick on YouTube and co-writer and editor for Lost in Adaptation. It's Katelyn Robinson. Applause. Lots of applause. Yay! Come on. Yay! Yay! Katelyn.
Oh my goodness, I'm so flattered.
You
gotta give the big Muppets opening, you know?
Obviously.
Nice.
They need to feel welcomed and immediately thrown off guard by the intensity.
I feel both. Just a distinct mixture.
Then we did our job then.
We're there. We're doing it. But I want you to introduce, what are we talking about this week?
Oh, so we're talking about... I thought I saw every adaptation, but we are talking about Pride and Prejudice, the musical. It's interesting because I've seen like 80s versions, miniseries, Bollywood version. I've seen Bridget Jones's Diary, but I have not seen a strict musical where it's set in the same time period. So this was a trip.
I'm glad. We have an expert on here with us, and it's so glad. But cue the music, Bree. Let's introduce the show.
Amazed how I love you, amazed how I care, Mr. Darcy, I swear. No other creature in the world could ever love this much, yet it took so long, for I confess my prejudice tainted my vision, but on this one occasion I was rescued by your sweet persuasion.
Pride and Prejudice is a musical with music, lyrics, and book by Paul Gordon. Based on Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, it opened at the Lucy Stern Theater at TheaterWorks Silicon Valley on December 4th, 2019, and was filmed with 3 HD cameras during its run at TheaterWorks. It closed in January of 2020. The plot of which I feel like everyone kind of has a basic idea, but this is what they have on their playbill, which is sparks fly when spirited Elizabeth Bennet meets single, rich, and proud Mr. Darcy. Based on the classic novel by Jane Austen, is a new musical adaptation by Tony Award nominee Paul Gordon, who has been on our show before. Paul did a really nice interview with us. I think I might re-release that this week, but he's a real nice guy, real sweet man. But let's talk about this musical real quick. So Kate, as expert here, as the one that has seen all the versions, I've only seen the wonderful movie and the Colin Firth miniseries, and I read the book a long time ago. That is where I stand, which is not much.
And I've seen this.
Yeah, this is Andrew's only version of Pride and Prejudice. How does this stack up compared to the other ones?
I would say, as far as being a appropriate adaptation, it's pretty high up there. I thought they did a really good job with choosing what to keep in and then kind of like what to remove and omit. And they were really able to express a lot through all of the songs that they chose. Especially anytime there was a letter, sometimes it was in song, usually Miss Bingley, which was a delight because it was like a sing-song, very like, yes, it's just dripping with sarcasm, but I'm being so delightfully, happy that I want you to come, that kind of deal. I was actually kind of amazed by that. I think there was a few interpretations of characters I wasn't a fan of, but I would say overall it was pretty strong.
Mm-hmm. I will say that Paul Gordon's biggest strength as a composer and writer, he's very good at adapting direct text into lyrics and making it sound like it sings. One of my favorite musicals of all time is his adaptation of Jane Eyre, where he wholesale takes portions of the book and just turns it into rhyming lyric, and it works so well in a way that I'm very confused as to why a lot of people that adapt novels don't tend to do that. I can't recall any direct one-to-one lines from the book turned into song here. Maybe you can, Kate, but I felt like they kind of leaned into the more modernistic feel of it.
Yes, they would start off a lot of the songs, I think, because there's only so much of her prose that you can turn into lyrics, because she is known for layering on adjective after adjective. So you kind of have to trim that down a bit when you're doing a song if you want it to flow. But I would say almost every song starts off with direct dialogue from the books. Normally, they did have it mostly spoken, especially I would say the beginning of the play. Especially, it more felt like they had their own asides to add on to the text that. Because the way Jane Austen kind of works is everything's very dry. You can't ever really show your full emotion. So they'll keep adding in more of that emotion into their songs, making every character more sassy, and you get more of an introspective of the characters because Pride and Prejudice is mostly in Elizabeth Bennet's POV. And I think what works about this musical is there is more than one song covering how Mr. Darcy feels, including, I think my favorite one is when he realizes he has a crush on her and he just starts going on, but like, oh God, I love her eyes. So I thought it was accurate in that they took liberties, but I'm actually all for adaptations taking liberties as long as you have the core feeling of the story.
I agree. Now I want to take a moment, since Andrew has never seen another version of Pride and Prejudice. I want him to try to tell us
me on air
what
here.
the plot of this story is just from the musical. Andrew, you do your best to explain the plot of Pride and Prejudice to us.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So there's like a family of 5 girls who it's during a time period where, you know, you marry the girls off for wealth and things like that. At least it seems that way. They're gonna lose their house or something like that unless they marry somebody, but this is a little later, I guess. I don't even know.
Unless you marry your cousin, you might
Unless
lose
you
your
marry your
house.
cousin, one of them
Rudy
has to marry their
Giuliani
cousin.
story.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Okay. I guess more importantly, there's another guy, Mr. Darcy, who is kind of a jerk, and the main character girl, Elizabeth, she really doesn't like him, and then she really does like him, but he really likes her the whole time, kind of. And it's like a romantic comedy kind of story, I guess, but older and cuter. I don't know.
They're dressed much cooler.
They're dressed
You were
much
very
cooler.
close.
I'm as close as I'm gonna get on one viewing.
You got the
here. I'm
broad
sorry.
strokes together.
Oh, yeah. I would say you got it pretty down pat.
There's some other side stuff, like there's a lady who is also horrible, who she shows up every once in a while and just kind of get told off by the main character.
Didn't even bring up Mr. Bingley.
Whatever, Mr. Bingley. I don't even care.
To be fair, the Mr. Bingley in this musical, I think he's my least favorite of all the Bingleys I've ever seen. They really relied on him being so shy that he has like almost no lines except like the 2 songs where I guess that was the point, is that he's so in his head, he's like afraid to speak up. But I don't know. The Bingleys I usually see in like the book and adaptations is he's so affable. Like he is the most warm and charming and welcoming character in the story that everyone kind of falls in love with him. And it's Jane who's the more like, she's in her head all the time and extremely shy. And because that's what women are told to do back then, is you're supposed to be demure and have the man chase you. But obviously that leads to misunderstandings.
But this show does the very interesting thing with Jane where there's like almost a running joke where no one talks to her despite her like, I have a voice, I want to speak, which was an interesting thing to put on that character that is known for being like a little bit more introverted.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, I would agree with that. I've only ever seen that done once with the Keira Knightley version. They kind of touched upon that with Jane, but this one was more so. Yeah, it was just a full-on running joke. Her exasperated with her family talking over her, and no one's listening to what she has to say.
Yeah. I think the whole thing here feels very classic music theater. It reminds me of some of the older shows we watch. I liked it. I actually quite liked it.
I mean, I think Paul Gordon is one of the more talented composer, writers out there that didn't get any real respect. He did Jane Eyre on Broadway, which got Tony nominees, and then he hasn't been to Broadway since. And he has 2 of my top favorite musicals, with Daddy Longlegs, which was the first musical to ever be streamed live, which is just a very charming, wonderful musical. And then Jane Eyre, which is just a perfect adaptation of the book, which in a way that no film ever did. I won't say that this musical is as good as Jane Eyre was as an adaptation. It isn't a replacement value to like the best versions of Pride and Prejudice on screen, but it is very good for being a musical and shortening and condensing it. It's one of the shortest versions. It's like 2 hours and some change and not much more.
Yeah, no, it was probably the shortest. I don't even think the black and white film is as short as this, but I thought it was really well placed regardless, because they honestly just cut down on the amount of parties that they attend to and the amount of letters that get read. So it was like, it's okay. Yeah, they got to the important bits.
And there's moments where they're like, instead of writing a letter, just show up and talk.
Yeah, I liked their use of scene transition was using Mary just coming in, acting like that broody teenager. We're in the drawing room now, and then just leaves.
It works so well. Like, this show has a sense of humor. There is not a self-seriousness to it. Like, Elizabeth has a lot of asides to the audience where it's like, well, I agree with that.
Oh, yeah. No, they took what POV narration you get in the book and like just amped up the sass. So she's constantly quipping at people. I think my favorite was her quipping at Lady Katelyn as Lady Katelyn's singing about how great she is. And she just keeps making these little snide remarks to the point that like Darcy interrupts the song by laughing. I like that bit a lot.
But you love to see it. There's so many characters that deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
And this one kind of gives you more cake in that way. Like, Elizabeth in the book and other adaptations is a little bit more to herself, and her sass kind of comes out in, like, small bursts of, like, these staccato things, whereas here she's, like, talking down everyone. Like, when she's up against, I think it's Lady Katelyn, and she's, like, real intense and has that, like, beat breakdown confrontation, and you see Darcy, like, horny on Maine in the background, and that is what triggers him to then ask her to marry him the first time, is a brilliant way to turn a scene that kind of feels out of place in most film adaptations and in the book and make it an actual character triggering moment. It leads right into the next scene. And I don't know if that's been done before. Maybe I'm incorrect.
It has oh god, what is I'm blanking on the director's name. It's his last name is Joe Wright.
Yes.
When he did the Keira Knightley version, it's actually even more so, I would say, much more, there's a lot more sexual tension in that version, and there's the much more horny on Maine Darcy walking through the fields with an open, romantic white shirt. and they even, I wouldn't say they kiss, but they're like very much close to making out at the end of that like love confession scene. And that one with Judi Dench being Lady Katelyn. So like possibly my favorite Lady Katelyn, because she really knows how to amp up that real, just real bitchiness. She like comes in stalking in the middle of the night, wakes the whole house up to yell at Liz. So I would say they're both on par, just different. But there aren't really that many adaptations that go that far. Usually they're pretty strict, like the 90s BBC miniseries with Colin Firth, which I feel is the most faithful of the adaptations.
But I think it also is one of the more boring versions of the adaptations.
Yeah.
It's a rough watch.
I think there should have been a lot more cutting down. I love the acting in it. And the costumes is gorgeous, but yeah, there's definitely the pacing, I would say personally, is not as tight as other adaptations. Even like with this musical, I think one of the things that works about musicals is so much that you need to convey, especially from a book. When there's a character having all these thoughts to themselves, you can burst it through song and cover a lot of ground in like under 3 minutes, which really, really worked in this book's favor, because it's a lot of it is in Elizabeth's head, because it's her experiencing like a day in the life of her. So I really think that worked well in this musical's favor. And I also enjoyed, I would say, a good like 80% of the songs.
I think that's kind of the thing, and maybe Andrew or you will disagree with this. I like the songs as they were happening. I cannot recall them by title. Only one that comes to mind when I think about the show is "I'm Headstrong," because she says it like 900 times.
Yeah, Headstrong. They repeat the title line quite often.
Yes, but I could never think of it, and I would instead think of like the Trapped song, and I got very confused. I was like, no, wait, that's not how it went. How did that song go? No, the one I always remembered is I don't know if it was called this, was Not the Man I Know.
Yes.
That one I kind of liked how it started off as a serious song and then kind of went into a jokey song and then went into like, oh, I think I'm in love with him now. I like the transition. They kind of tweaked the lyrics and the enunciation between like the 3 different verses, which I think that was probably the most well executed and memorable song to me.
Mm-hmm. There are moments where it really does jump out, like as it doesn't feel feminist in the way that like girl power, but in the way that they have agency behind what they're acting as. Specifically in the moments where her and Jane are talking and they explain what they feel about this. I feel like you don't often get that in a lot of film versions where you get those like more intimate conversations, like here's what's going on and how I'm feeling about this and how it's developing. And specifically in remarks to Jane, who gets basically dumped and ghosted as best as you can in the Regency area, she's kind of a prop for like Elizabeth's love line, where here they kind of try to characterize her and give her a bit more of a story and like emotions and like why she's this way and why she holds in so much.
Oh, yes. I would definitely agree with that. I think that's what's always worked about Jane Austen's works, because it is still prevalent, you know, in regards to the era. So obviously she can only be so feminist, but there is... I liked that they especially added in the beginning where she starts off with a quote from the beginning of the book, Liz, where, you know, something, a man of great fortune must be in want of a wife. And then they change and you're like, but why? Why do we need that? Why do we need to get married off so young? And then she goes on this whole thing about it. And I was like, oh, okay, I see where this play wants to say. But like, it never shames you for wanting to get married, and it doesn't ever belittle the book. It seems to cherish the book as much as like its fans would, but it also wanted to update it for a more like modern sensibility, which I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Andy
did a very good job with that. Yeah.
As someone that just saw this version and like there is more feminist tendencies leaning in this, did you notice them in this? I mean, I don't have experience with the book or anything like that, so I can't really say like, oh yeah, this is way more feminist than the book. I don't really know. I mean, were you ever like shocked, like for a Regency story, this is pretty modern feeling?
Well, yeah, but it's expected. I mean, I knew that this was made like this year or last year. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of expecting it. And a lot of times when you remake these older works, you have to update them or people are going to be pretty upset about the material. Because, I mean, I don't know about this book. Maybe it's fine and you could just make it as is. But a lot of older material, you expect an update.
I'd say that this book probably ages better than a lot of them. Like, the narrative is so effective while still being antiquated in the fact that I need to marry my daughters off and get dowry, and if they marry the wrong person or elope with the wrong person, then our entire
it's not a good look, that's for sure.
Yes. Speaking on when Andrew was recalling the plot, the whole they're going to lose their house, it's more that because she had no sons, it's more talked about even more so in the book. Yeah. If the father dies, they basically could get kicked out because Mr. Collins is not exactly the nicest person. He doesn't seem to really care. So she's like, oh, if I marry one of my daughters to him, then you'll have to let us stay. Yeah. That's very common in her works of Jane Austen, because that happens in Sense and Sensibility, where their father dies and their cousin basically kicks them out of the house. And that's how that story begins. Because
women couldn't own property. Like, they just straight up didn't allow them to, which is obviously terrible. And the cousin is an absolute creep in this. It's very unsettling, but it's funny. I mean, they play it for laughs, but yeah.
Because there's no way you can really play it. I can't imagine no way.
Well, you can't play it not for laughs. I mean, you could play it to like really creepy, but then you'd want him to like be killed or something, you know.
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Yeah.
That's the one I have not seen, only because I didn't read the book, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. It I don't know, something about it felt slightly wrong to me, but I could be proven wrong. I have no idea.
I
Where do you
started
add
it and fell
in?
asleep, but I've seen the scene the proposal scene with Darcy and
have
Elizabeth,
to.
which is fun, I guess.
I was kind of annoyed. I was like, wait, I thought they were supposed to be zombies. It's just them like knife fighting in a library. I was very confused. So I was like, oh, maybe they're zombies eventually. So that's the only scene I've seen as well.
But I know the cousin character was played by Matt Smith in that movie, which he is an attractive enough guy. So I'm wondering if they tried to frame him as like a more possible choice, like a more reasonable choice.
Maybe. Honestly, as creepy as this Collins was, he is really toned down from how he is in the book, because he is a stand for Lady Catherine. All he wants to talk about is like Lady Catherine. She suggested this furniture for me. She decorated my house, and like, oh my God, Lady Catherine's so great. I eat dinner with her every night, and it's like, I thought you're married. What the hell? It's very, very bizarre. So I think they toned him down considerably. He still manages to be creepy, though. He's just a creepy guy.
I mean, the way he like walks up and looks at all the girls, it's like, yeah, this is skeevy.
It's like he's at a brothel or something. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like these are, and they're your cousins too. It's like, oof.
Oh, well, unfortunately, that's not a thing that bothers him back then.
Oh, I know. That didn't bother them back then,
Went
but I
full
mean,
Giuliani.
I'm watching it now and I don't like it.
Oh, yeah, no. I think that's why they keep that in, because it just adds on to like
It adds
how
more.
much, yeah.
It's even more creepy now because it's like, oh, it's his cousins too. Oh.
Yeah. Ugh.
so Kate, I'm curious, what kind of musicals do you enjoy, if you do enjoy them?
Like I am actually very, very picky. I do have like a short list. Most of them I would say are more in that cabaret style, where they're not so much breaking out into song as more as they're performing the song, like kind of like what's a good example? Like Chicago, the movie, not the Broadway musical, where it's either in someone's head or they're performing it. I really like that look of it, especially if you can get really, really creative. I also do adore Singin' in the Rain. I think that's probably one of the most perfect films I've ever seen. Even with it being as long as it is, there's just so much to enjoy about it. And I just like the core story. I like how each song kind of changes up. But I also like the not so great, but I love them anyway, like Purple Rain. Not the greatest movie I've ever seen, but I really, really love the soundtrack, and it's a very fun movie to watch. I also... so anything in regards to that, I do love Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella, though. That I've loved since I was a little girl. Anytime I see there's a new version, I'm like, oh, I have to watch it now. Unfortunately, I've not seen it ever like on stage, but I have seen many filmed stage musicals, or like the Brandy version from the 90s I've also seen.
So you'd call yourself more a casual, like, musical theater enjoyer.
Yeah.
So that means even more to me that you really kind of like this show, to be honest. Because I do kind of feel like this is more designed for folks like you and Andrew, who kind of take this in a little bit more casually. And I think the way it was shot specifically really encapsulates it. I think this is one of the better ways that a stage show has ever been shot. I think the people behind streaming musicals do an amazing job with it, where it's very wide, it's very cinematic, but you get all the theatrical pieces. It's never embarrassed to be a musical, like the Miss Saigon or the Allegiance recordings were very embarrassed to be a musical, so they tried to make it look as filmic as possible. Whereas this is like, no, that we know what we are, but we're gonna make it look good.
I think it did
I would
look
definitely
very
agree
good
with
too.
that.
It was sometimes you have a filmed version and it's very distracting. They'll like zoom in on random things that just don't really make sense. They'll cut around during like dance numbers. In this one, I never even really noticed it, which is what you want.
No, yeah, definitely. The way it's shot feels very deliberate. They want you to focus on certain parts of the scenes, how something fades out, how they bleed into the next transition. I did like the way they would showcase how someone's reading a letter and they'll cast a shadow over someone, but you get like a full view of both of them. Yeah, it never felt stagnant, and it never felt like it was trying too hard. It was just, it flowed very, very nicely. I was never bored watching it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good one. Now, Andrew, you have only ever seen one other Paul Gordon musical, and that was No One Called Ahead.
Yes.
How does this compare to that?
That was okay. I think this is much better than that, actually. I mean, I don't want to be, like, mean to that one, but this was quite good. It might be the story is just a better story, and I mean, obviously this has held the test of time better than an original piece. I don't know. I thought this was a really tight show that was, like, cute and fun, which we don't get a lot of in modern shows, I don't think.
I feel like there's this thing in films that exist that isn't allowed to happen in musicals, and I kind of hope that these more like film stage productions for like tiny audiences will bring. There are no mediocre musicals. There's either like the god-awfully bad ones that had a lot of money behind it, so it has to hit Broadway anyways, or so good that because we had to put all this work and effort and money into it, it has to be so good. There's nowhere to be like a cute, good, mediocre musical can like live. And I wouldn't even call this mediocre. I'd say it's pretty good, but it's not going to fill Broadway seats. But I'm glad it exists, and I can watch it whenever I want. I can listen to the cast album. It's not going to be some demo recording that would be leaked 1,000 years from now.
Maybe it could on name recognition. I mean, people know of it.
I think the day of like Regency musicals kind of died in 2001 with the producers, where this Paul Gordon's Jane Eyre was up against that, and no one saw it. No one went to see it. And I can't think of another big Regency show. And if you are, you have to put a big twist on it, like Hamilton, where it's like rap.
Yeah. Oh well. we can see it now. They filmed it. You know that, and I think that's a really good thing to do.
We need to do more of these. We need to like embrace younger composers and new composers to try venturing into filming their stuff and putting out there. Like Star Kid, they did that themselves, and now they've got an entire empire on themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, Star Kid, that's the like where they did that. Like they're very comedy-based musicals. Like,
yes.
Was that the one with like Aladdin?
Yes,
it's a lot of comedy and like parody. Style stuff.
I saw the one about the aliens making everyone sing. I don't remember what it was called. That one was really good. I really like that one.
The guy who didn't like musicals. And that is a great way to kind of get musical theater out to audiences, because kids, like when I was 15, I wasn't able to pay $200+ to go to New York to go see a show, and then like either do bootlegs or I'd pay $10 to see something like this on Amazon.
I don't have $200 to see a show right now.
Shows don't exist right now.
True, but I also don't have $200.
But you know what? Who cares what we think? We gotta compare our opinions to those of the theater and film and whatever critics, because this is a multimedia thing. It's time for our favorite section of the show. It's time for Previews, where we compare our opinions to those of reviewers.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
Henry Etkowitz of Splash Magazines said of the Theater Works production, a delightful proto-feminist interpretation of Austen's classic, well worth seeing. Everyone worked hard to make such a perspicacious perspective.
It's like New York Times, they just make up words.
Perspicacious. What does that mean?
Perspicacious. I don't know. Let's look it up.
Oh my goodness.
Having a ready insight into an understanding of things.
All right.
Okay. You know.
Had to use that word.
A perspicacious musical, possible, based on a recent reading of Martha, is it Gellhorn's?
Gellhorn's.
Yes.
Gellhorn's biography. The intrepid 20th century female journalist and author, we wish to nominate her life and relationships for musical, even operatic treatment in a future Theater Works update on women's experience.
I like that one because he started with a review and then he backdoor pitched his own musical. I appreciate it.
That was something.
Oh, God.
Is that even a review then?
No.
It's good, but here's a better idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Steve Murray of Broadway World said, all the stars have aligned in Theater Works' engaging world premiere of Pride and Prejudice. a musical that re-energizes and greatly enhances Jane Austen's popular romantic tale of manners set in the Regency period of England. There's a convergence of shining talents at work here from top down. The Tony-winning creative team from TheatreWorks, the excellent direction from departing artistic director Robert Kelly, a superior ensemble cast, and the marvelous score and script by Tony nominee Paul Gordon.
Oh, that was positive.
So that is basically all the big reviewers that we're going to be talking about, but we agree with most of what they have to say.
I would say so.
We've got one more from Sam Hurrett of Mercury News. Do you want to dive into that, Bree?
Yeah.
This is me being fair. I added a negative one.
Okay. Let's see, maybe it's constructive.
Maybe. We'll see.
Sam Hurrett of Mercury News said, "There's no particular reason why Pride and Prejudice shouldn't be a musical, but this latest version doesn't make much a case for it being one either. With some assuming tunes of phrase, the songs are tolerable ways to pass the time waiting for each song to end and the sparkling dialogue to resume. But few are particularly engaging in their own right. One notable exception is Sister Jane's touching, stoic lament, a man of my acquaintance."
So, negative, but I like this one song.
Yeah. Sounded like Mr. Darcy wrote that.
Yes! Oh my god. See, now you've...
Very negative towards the music.
Yeah.
I don't know. The music was okay. I mean, I suppose I could agree if someone said that they didn't like it that much. I don't know.
It's definitely a style. You have to like that kind of musical. I mean, that's why I was when I said I like Roger and Hammerstein, where it's just that very quirky, it's very lighthearted. Sometimes you're going to get really, really nice string accompaniment, and sometimes it's going to be a little light on it. I would say it keeps it simple because it wants you to more be engaged with the lyrics and the story, less so about being this big giant production where everyone there's 10 dancers coming out behind her or something like that. It's more, I felt about the lyrics, so that's what I more paid attention to. So I thought I would have to disagree with them, and I think it was kind of backhanded of them to say oh, I don't think this musical proved that it's necessary. I was like, that's so...
It's a bit rude.
Yeah, I was like, it's your opinion, I guess, but wow, okay.
That's your opinion.
Yeah.
All right. You guys ready for the most your opinion thing you will ever hear
Jess,
today?
why is there an essay on my screen here?
There's an essay in the Amazon reviews of this musical. There's 4 reviews, and then you've got this long essay, and this is a shortened version. I've cut this down, and I'll read it just to get it out because I have a voice I want to use for this. But I imagine this is someone on their Wattpad, getting really angry about the Pride and Prejudice musical. So I've trimmed this down a little bit, so this isn't the full word for word thing they wrote. So I'm hoping I'm not framing anything badly. But this is from Amazon reviewer Julie L., who said, "Let me preface every criticism I have by saying some people will really love this musical, and that clearly it is a newly developed act piece that needs time to season. I recognize this and only write this out of personal disappointment as a musical theater actress and an avid admirer of Pride and Prejudice, because I think this could have been a really wonderful success, but their approach seems to have been faulty. With that being said, the acting, music, and certain moments in the dialect are nothing to write home about. I am very much disappointed." Now she goes through each character. First, Elizabeth. Elizabeth's person was much too feminist for my liking. Instead of allowing her to simply be a strong, capable woman who took center stage and was confident in her own capabilities and smarts, etc., she had to be an obnoxious in certain areas, and it was a little preachy. All right? I didn't see that, but let's see what they said about Darcy. I enjoyed seeing his change from Act 1 to Act 2, but the songs written for him did not match his character at all. Also, he seems to be much more of a personal reflection kind of guy, not a rock tunes kind of guy. Of course, he opens up in Act 2, but the music was just not written for his character.
Oh, wow. That was very personal.
we got more.
A very particular interpretation of this, and they don't want anyone to stray from it.
Don't mess with my Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
I don't think Julie got the part, and she's a little salty.
I auditioned for Elizabeth, and I had my interpretation down, and this was not my interpretation.
This was way too feminist for my liking.
Trump 2024.
Oh, no.
All right, music. Pretty much all the music was disjointed and took you out of the story. The musical score was definitely a switch. I see what they were trying to do, but it wasn't executed very well. The lyrics were also quite badly written. The rhyming was all off, and the actual musicality was not harmonious. The score didn't have anything catchy about it. Nothing really classy in this musical, as I expected, seeing as it is a classic story.
What?
What?
Maybe the score not having catchy, like maybe I could see that. It's not that catchy of music.
Yeah, no, I would say there's probably like maybe 2 or 3 songs that I would consider like catchy as I would like listen to it on my free time and not watching the musical again.
Not harmonious though. I mean,
that's a lot.
What do you mean by that? That's just,
Yeah.
I mean.
All right, you ready? She's about to roast the acting.
Okay.
Oh boy.
So the acting. Did anyone else notice the hands? Elizabeth overused her hands and it totally distracted me. Anyways, that might just be me. As an acting note, it is really wonderful in a fast-paced show like this to take a moment when acting to think and respond. Moments of silence between characters draws out tension and a more tangible relationship. This happened once and I wanted more, but I was even too short then. There was too much going on. They needed more focus and allow for more moments of space to really draw in the audience. Just dead air, you know?
Yeah, can we schedule a bit more dead air on the stage, please? Can we have some time where they just sit there and don't do anything, please? Thank you.
I think she thought she was watching an actual movie and then realized too late that it was a stage musical. I don't understand what she was looking for exactly.
What are you talking about? She's an actress herself.
Yeah, oh my god.
All right, she's got her final thesis statement to wrap this all up.
I'm looking forward to it.
I am overall very disappointed with this musical. Now, I have no hate for the story, what the directors were trying to do, or the thespians, but the execution was less than stunning. There is so much to work with, and I am very sad to see a take on a beloved classical story go in such a trendy, flaky way. The reason that it is a classic is that people are transformed into that world, not jolted out of it with rock music. Sorry again for the long-winded review, but if you're looking for some real quality musicals, check out Phantom of the Opera, Wicked, Bandstand, etc.
Oh.
I mean, sure.
Wow.
Go check out Phantom, which is not at all a rock musical.
I was going to say, wait a minute, she was playing the whole time about rock music, and I was like, okay.
But yeah, check out Phantom and Wicked, which definitely aren't that. Those are classics. Get the harpsichord, baby.
What rock music did she hear in this musical? I'm like trying to think of like.
She heard a guitar one time and she was like, "Oh, it's the Beatles all over again."
It's kind of Beatle-ish. There's like alternative rock, but it's not like super distracting.
No, I wouldn't exactly call this like Phantom or like Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Like it wasn't exactly like in my face, like loud punk sounding or very operatic electric guitars. It was very like there's a mostly string accompaniment with like some acoustic guitars. Did
she want like an actual like Beethoven style accompaniment, like
I guess.
harpsichord and like a string quartet? Like what do you want?
Jess, I think you.
Yes.
I think you skipped over my favorite part.
Oh, what was your favorite part? I tried to truncate it.
Part.
The singing part? Okay.
The singing part.
I'll bring up the singing part. I will reinterpret it. Okay. Are you ready? This is like literally right before it. Her notes on the singing, because I cut a lot out of it. I noticed Elizabeth was flat. Now, I am a singer, so I completely understand a bad day. And I would never want to drag her down because of an off day. I truly think it was because of the high belting that happens when it really doesn't need to happen. I am very tired of constant mixing and belting within the musical theater world. There is nothing to be ashamed of if you are a legit soprano. Please, it is much more appealing to the ears to sound nice. But that being said, occasionally belting at the right time to bring punch to really add to a musical, because it is a little spice. But constant belting is dangerous for singers and honestly obnoxious as an audience member.
But, watch Phantom.
Yeah, go watch Phantom, though. There's no belting at all.
Oh yeah,
in Phantom.
Wicked is not known for belting at all. There is no belting in Wicked.
No, well, they do it the right amount. This one, way overboard.
Yeah, you cast
so
Idina Menzel to never belt. That's the reason why you have Idina Menzel.
Oh, of course.
What?
Yeah. There really wasn't that much belting in this. I would say, was I always a fan of wherever it was placed? No, but it never was like a terrible distraction. It was usually to pinpoint an emotional point in a song.
I feel like if you compare this show to a lot of other shows, it's more subdued than a lot of modern shows.
There was one moment that took me out of, and I can see the argument for it, where I laughed at it. It's like right after, I think, the start of Act 1, or Act 2, and she's getting the letter from Darcy, and he's explaining his past with Wickham, and he's like, he's a terrible man that's done me a horrible danger. It was a long time ago! Like, he just goes from, like, normal speaking to, like, high-pitched wailing. Yeah. And I was like, oh.
Okay.
Honestly, that letter execution, I get it because they had to like kind of break it down and simplify it for a song. It did come off. I'm like, wow, anyone who's never read the book or seen an adaptation will think he's just kind of overreacting and is being way too protective. But what actually happens is he tells her like, oh no, yeah, he gambled all his money away. Yes, he does mention that. But then he's like, but he colluded with her like maid to get her alone so that he could whisk her away, the same thing that he does to Liz's sister. And he finds out at the last minute right when they're about to elope. And then obviously he's like, well, I'll pay you off. And then that's what made him leave. But yeah, so the way they simplified it was by him screaming with passion at, Wickham's face, which was kind of funny. Honestly, the only time I was taken out of anyone, it wasn't even a song. It was when Liz gets the letter from Jane about her sister running away. And he's supposed to be like comforting her, but he like screams at her instead. He's like, well, what are they doing about it? And I'm like, why are you yelling at her?
Yeah, it almost... I kind of was like, wait, is he just really mad about the situation, or is he like trying to make her feel better? It's hard to say.
It was the only part that took me out. I was like, oh, all right, well, relax.
Jess, how did you skip this accents part here? This is classic.
Oh my god. Why don't you read this one?
Sure. Accents, and this is a one line. Lady Catherine, not Catherine. Diction is very important for music theater, but you can overdo it sometimes.
Who did she write this review for?
I don't even have words for that. Okay.
You mispronounced the word, guys. Throw it away.
Wait till you don't like mispronunciations. Wait till you watch Phantom. God forbid if you're French. On that note, let's go into a mid-show announcement. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we've got a shill at you. Today's show is brought to you by the extremely kind donations by our donors over at Patreon. Andrew, tell us about Patreon and who's supporting us.
Oh boy, Patreon is where you can go if you'd like to give us some money and get some extra perks. I mean, we have commentaries, we have the Gallivant podcast going on right now, where we're talking about all the Gallivant episodes.
Me and Bree are going to do a bunch of commentary soon. We're going to do... I think we're doing the Cheetah Girls coming up. That's going to be a fun...
Wait, I'm not invited to the Cheetah Girls? Whatever.
I mean, if you had a free moment in your life, you'd be welcome, but you don't. So it's me and Bree watching the Cheetah Girls.
All right, whatever.
And also,
I'm
you
jealous.
get video versions of these podcasts, so you can see Kate's face right now as she's laughing at us goofing about.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Highly recommended. In fact, Kate just recommended you joining our Patreon. Like, I saw it in her eyes.
Don't put words in other people's mouths.
You see it in her eyes.
Fine. Don't put words in other people's eyes.
Don't do that. That sounds like it would hurt.
Oh, no.
All right. That's not what I said. Our current patrons. And here we go. Let's see if I can pronounce these all correctly in one go.
We got a bunch of real train wreck names at the end, so good luck.
I'm going to get them. Here we go. Melissa Goldman, Terry Needleman, John Donna, Max Lunig, Leighton Ackles, Danielle Renix, Jess the Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Taskier, Fire of September, Monica Thoreau, Mina Maneri, Brent Black, Haley Murray, B-Way Flicks, Nathaniel Stacy Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Carrie Ahern, Irigale Drouet Whiter, Christine Malmadel, Cole Birchfield, Mary Lou Choquette, Jean Vanels, Heck You, I Go By Elijah Now, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Emily Gracie, Tablam, Kyle Summers, Janae C., Christina Francis, Liz Lim, Corey Wilmarth, Allison Stoller, Nothing Is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, John Vanels, Thespian, Ren Cullen, Wait in the Wings, Lady Malvolia, Spectacle Machine, Jacob Stroop, Robert Benjamin, Rochelle T., Jessica Tubis, Genevieve Hartnett, Cass, Just Cass, Mitchell Young, Chai Teacup, Hayden Wilder, Katie McDonough or something like that.
McDonough.
That makes much more sense. Genki Geist, Stakas, Timothy Keys, and here's the new ones. Jeffrey Machado, Jacqueline Spring, and Toon Von Essen.
Great job. They give us a little extra financial support that helps us keep the lights on here at Musicals with Cheese and keep Bree employed, because we love keeping Bree employed, because I'm sick of editing podcasts for the rest of my life. So if you would like to join them in supporting us and get tons of fun perks such as patron-only commentaries, our episodes a day early, video episodes, and a bunch of other crap, come join us over at Patreon. Also, we've got merch. At this point, you should have a brand new t-shirt there that says Stinkaroo, to reference last week's Wizard of Oz episode. So you can buy that.
All right, let's get back to the music.
Let's go!
Happiness in marriage is essential and desired. It must be all a woman dreams of. The craving is required. But when you meet your suitor, kiss him once, then say adieu. For the more you get to know him, the more he gets to know you.
So the opening number, Happiness in Marriage, which has become a repetitive theme, I think it does a really good job of setting up the world, of how important marriage is in this world. It almost feels like it would suit better like a Little Women, because marriage being important is much more of a strict character piece in that, where it's kind of like a thing that is important but not really the driving force of this story.
I don't know, they sort of framed the story around that, though, in this musical. Maybe that's not the way it is in the book, but it sort of feels like it fits here.
I guess. But
yeah, I could agree with a bit of that. I mean, in most of her books, they are all centered around a proposal gone bad, or trying to get a proposal, or someone almost forces you into a proposal. So it is usually a motif without her books. I think they tried to put in the musical a little bit less focus on it than it is in the book, but I think it's always still prevalent there. It's sort of the situational plot that kind of gets them into all the misunderstandings, meets new characters through that. I do like that they add in Liz making more of a big deal that she makes like a reference to Taming of the Shrew. Like, she's like, oh, I'm probably not, I'm going to be a spinster, most likely, because I'm too much for people. So
I also think this sets up the rules of the musical is trying to set up, where Elizabeth can talk to you, other people will talk at you but not directly to you, where the fourth wall will be broken through the form of letters and Darcy will sing his emotions out to you, but Elizabeth is talking to you.
Yes. Yeah, I liked that kind of breaking the fourth wall for her. Because, I guess they were inspired by that the book is narrated by her, so they wanted you to feel as involved as you do in the book, where she's like almost like talking to her friend in a way.
I really like it when the main character talks to me. Mm-hmm. It's like in Fiddler on the Roof. It's very comforting. I like it.
Or Fleabag. I like Fleabag line.
Fleabag, it freaks me out when other people start breaking the fourth wall and point out the fact she's breaking the fourth wall. I jumped when Andrew Scott did that. Because a season had happened and that wasn't allowed to happen.
No, I love a good creative usage of breaking the fourth wall. I would say like I like that, and I mean not that I love the movie, but it kind of also reminds me of Alfie or High Fidelity, where the character is addressing you. You're like almost like a friend. He's like explaining to you like what's going on, and that's kind of what she does, but even more so in her thoughts, because she'll basically describe to you certain characters. You're like, oh yeah, this is Lady Catherine. Yeah, I do like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think the opening number is really good. Not the most memorable one, but let's dive into the I Want song for Elizabeth, which is Headstrong.
Even if I don't know my heart, I'm headstrong, crashing into walls, sometimes taking falls as people can, and I fall as well as any man. I'm willful, but is that such a crime? I speak by conscience every time, and I am not as foolish as my younger sisters on the hunt for their two misters. That is not my care, 'cause I'm too headstrong for any man to bear.
I wasn't the hugest fan of that song. It felt very Disney, I Want More.
Yes.
You know, it was okay. It wasn't nearly the reason why those sort of songs like in those Disney cartoon films were, because they're the big number, the big solo. You get to really show off your pipes there. And this one it kind of did, but it was still very, I wouldn't say flat. It was just very much more subdued. And so I don't think it hit the way I think they were hoping it would.
I mean, I think that there's no drama for Elizabeth yet at that point. So
Yes.
it's more like an I Am song, like I am steadfast and headstrong and all these things. Whereas a proper I Want song should suggest a need. Whereas what would Elizabeth's need here be? Which she has none. She's pretty complacent living with her
The
sisters.
need is to stay headstrong.
I feel like that is the struggle in this song, where it wants to be an I Want song, but Elizabeth in the book and in this story as of yet doesn't want nothing.
No, not at all.
Which I think is more the issue. But Jane, like, she could have sung a song about what she wants for her sister and her family and what that, like, kind of like Reflection in Mulan, where it's like, she doesn't want anything, but her family wants this, and I want to make them happy. But Elizabeth, even in the books, is like, she's a daddy's girl, and daddy ain't going to make her do nothing she don't want to.
No, I would have to agree with that. I think that instead of Liz singing a headstrong song, it should have been an opening number for Jane, so that you kind of know where she's at. Because she really does want to find, not just get married, she wants to be in love and find a nice man who will treat her right.
I was expecting more stuff with Jane in this. They kind of hype her up with the mother character, like talking about her all the time, and then she doesn't really do anything.
No. I don't know if they were trying to keep true to the book, because she never does. Well, she never talks back to anyone in the book. But so when they added in that running joke, I thought it was going to have a payoff where she finally like tells off her mom or something like that. But it doesn't happen.
No, they keep doing it like, oh, I'm right here, and it's like, all right, and then it just, that's it, it's over.
Yeah, it
I
should
guess
have had a payoff. You're right.
She gets with the guy that can't talk to her, and there you go.
Yeah. It seemed more like a payoff for him to finally speak up, but it didn't really work on the same level with her. It was just more like she just finally asked him, like, well, and that was about it.
I mean, Bingley's barely a character in this. Like, in every other version, he is a character. He's a goofball, weirdo, well-intentioned himbo. Really easily manipulated, but he's that.
Yes.
And here he's just guy interested in Jane, and Jane interested in him.
I think his songs were probably also my least favorite, just because I just didn't care enough about him as a character. So whenever he would sing about his thoughts, it's like, that's nice, but I really don't know you that well.
I guess so. So why don't we move on to Darcy's I Am song, which is Bravado.
She's taken the bravado out of me. Oh, I'm a fool, behaving like a schoolboy. Why would she consider taste that she finds bitter? What can be done? Opinions have been fashioned. She can barely stand me. There is not a chance, Miss Bennet, that I would allow the world to know how it came to be. You've taken all the bluster out of me.
Not the most subtle song in the world.
No.
No.
When he first started off as a character in this, I was a little worried because he did come off a bit strong in his song and in his manner of speech. So I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about him. I would say his later songs are much, much better.
Yes.
This one's just kind of like, all right, I get it. They're establishing that he's kind of a dick, and I like the twist that he kind of establishes he's afraid to care in a way, but doesn't really see it as such, just because he feels like he's, you know what it reminded me of? That song felt like a song for her other book, like Sense and Sensibility, where the colonel who's been burned before, the older rich guy, where Darcy hasn't actually been burned by a woman before, more so just a best friend who tried to steal his sister. That was about it. So it was a decent song, but it didn't really establish who Darcy actually is in the book.
Yeah, I kind of just got the impression that he's just a jerk.
Yeah.
Which sort of makes it a little bit weird when suddenly he's not. Like, he's just like, oh, well, now I love someone, so I'm not jerk anymore.
Yeah, that does happen in the book. He's immediately smitten with Liz. Like, after he calls her ugly, he's smitten with her because he realizes very quickly that she knows what he said.
Would you agree with me, Kate, that I feel like Darcy's dickishness has been toned down in the musical? Because compared to, like, the 2006 movie and especially the Colin Firth miniseries, I feel like he's much less of an emo angry boy here and much more of just kind of normal guy that's a little bit of a dick sometimes.
He's a lot more upfront about his feelings. He's a lot less awkward and distant how he is like in the book or in the Colin Firth version. Even I would say he's on par with like Matthew McFadden from the Joe Wright version.
Yes.
That one's even, I would say, even a much more nicer version of Darcy, where he's just sort of like this adorkable, very sweet, but like super, super awkward guy. Here he's like kind of like more hot tempered. I've never seen such an aggressive Darcy before. But he was like at times, his battle of wits with her were a little more warm than they are in the book. Whereas like you can never tell what he's thinking. But I guess with the musical, especially when they're going to do his songs, you constantly know what he's thinking. And he's he's just much more forward. Like when they're doing that little dance, the way that they even lead into that, he kind of just makes fun of her. He's like, well, I figure if we're going to argue, you might as well dance.
Yeah, maybe it's just the actor's like innate charm or not trying to put on like a kind of more off-putting persona, which might be a little bit harder to digest being in a room with them and having to see it and having to sing. So maybe that was a choice. It was just something I felt from like, I kind of feel like they're tipping their head of likability a little too much toward him in Act 1.
Yeah, I could see with some of, especially in the very, very beginning of Act 1 with him, I would agree with that, especially when you get that first song from him where they immediately want to go right out the gate, I'm a dick and rich, and I don't trust any of these women's in this ballroom. And it's like, oh, okay. And then there's a switch where he sees Liz and he's like, okay, maybe I like someone here, you know.
Her
I could give this a
eyes!
shot. Yeah. Yeah, I laughed out loud at that though, where he has like a panic attack. Oh God, I have a crush. It was very high school. It was very funny.
All right, let's talk about the one that one critic said was the only good song, A Man of My Acquaintance. Which, I love this just because it characterizes Jane a lot more and kind of explains what she's going through, which no other version takes the time to do.
He's really nothing special, just a man of my acquaintance. And if I had an error of fancy, no one could blame me for that. I had my reasons. His hands were He's a man of my acquaintance, nothing more than it appears, and it will never be more than it is. And we'll say hello in passing, and I won't regret how it has to be, and I'll wish him well in life graciously. He's just a man of my acquaintance.
I would say it's probably one of the least memorable songs for me. I'm actually trying to remember. I can kind of remember bits of it. It didn't stick out to me as much, but I did enjoy it when I was rewatching it this morning. I was like, oh, that's right. I remember the song now. And I didn't remember it upon my first initial viewing.
Which makes sense. It is kind of an unassuming song. I just appreciate it because it does something that I haven't seen in other versions.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no. Any chance to give Jane much more depth? Even though we said I don't think there was a proper payoff with her character, this is probably the most in-depth Jane that I've seen out of all the adaptations. There's always been hints, but this has probably been the most full-fledged version of Jane I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also the most different version of Elizabeth, where
Yes.
It is a much more caustic performance, but I think it works very well in, like, it almost feels like she's got a vlog. Like, that kind of vibe.
Yes. She also plays it a bit older. At the start of the book, I believe Elizabeth is just 18, and she acts like an 18-year-old, precocious, thinks she knows everything, but she does know her place. She doesn't always talk back to her elders. It's a little more reserved. But here, she plays it a lot older and is a lot more open with how she feels. She's a lot more quick to have a sassy comeback at someone than she would in the book.
She's a lot more feministy than I would like.
Feministy? Sounds like an
She's
X-Men
riding
character.
the SJW train.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
We're not going there, Jess. We're not going there. We're not touching that.
You know what? That's fair. I think there's only one more song worth talking about, and that is Not the Man That I Know, which is a very bouncy number. It almost feels like a Beatles song when I kind of think about it. It kind of has like that tinkly, like bum, bum, bouncy feel of like an early Beatles song.
Not the man that I know, he's nothing like that. It is in his way. That's not the man that I know, he's not well behaved. He's never been nice. He's never been fair. Or have I misjudged him? That's not the man that I know. He must be confused. He must have it wrong. That's not the man that I know. No, surely not him. He's never been kind. He's never been warm. Or am I in error?
No, I loved this song the most. I thought it was the most engaging. I loved the flow. I love how it starts off with one meaning, and then by the time that you get to the end of it, she's completely. It was a really good transition from her being like, do I like Darcy? No, I can't like him. And then she's like, I might like him. I liked that transition. It kind of reminded me of Won't Say I'm in Love from the Disney's Hercules movie, where it starts off like, I'm in denial. No, I don't like this guy. And then she's like, okay, I like this guy.
It's the same type of song, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does what most musical theater songs should do. Take a character from one place to another, whether it be like physically, mentally, or like character-wise, a different interpretation. I think it's one of the better ones. Almost on par with like something like Painting Her Portrait from Paul Gordon's Jane Eyre, which is like Jane like hyping herself up to think she's great, but then falling right back down. We're like, nope, I'm not gonna be able to ever be good enough for him. It's kind of like that, where it's like, he's trash, maybe he isn't. Okay, I like him.
Oh, I'm jealous. I personally am a huge fan of the book Jane Eyre. That's another one I've seen almost every adaptation of. But I saw that he did a Jane Eyre musical, but I don't think it's really available anywhere apart from the music that you can like stream. I think that's about it.
When I had him on for the interview, I kind of gushed about how much I loved Jane Eyre, and he said, Yeah, that's going to be another one I'm hoping to film soon. So when that happens, Kate, I hope you'll come back on to talk about that.
Oh, yeah,
I've got
of course.
so much Jane Eyre knowledge in the back of my head as that's the one I've seen almost every adaptation for.
Yeah, I love Jane Eyre. Yeah, I am a big stan of Jane Eyre. That's probably my favorite classic novel, apart from anything from Jane Austen. But it did kind of remind me of that sort of staple you see in a good musical, where you see the transition that you start off in denial and then you kind of have to face your own feelings. And also it was just a very catchy tune. I would say it had the better, I would say it was the most easiest to listen to, apart from the, I don't really think there was any other songs that really stuck out to me the way that song did in particular.
I agree. I can see the argument there. It's the least theatery song too, in my opinion. Maybe I feel like that, while acting as a theater song and like having an effective storytelling, feels the least theatery. There's not as much strings. It's not as much of a I'm diving into the abyss of my emotions, and more like, wow, like it could be a pop song in and of itself, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. I would say, other than that one, I oddly liked the really creepy Mr. Collins song, just mostly from the accompaniment of the women singing behind him. That I really liked that flow. It was just something very quirky, but also something disturbing about it. So you're just kind of like, oh, where's the song going? And also Liz refusing Mr. Collins too. I would say of like good string accompaniment, though would be the two are the strongest that happen in the middle. But yeah, the strongest one for me that I enjoyed the most, that I would definitely listen to without rewatching the musical, would be the Man That I Know.
I think that's a great way to wrap that up. Wrap up the songs on our highest note. All right. Now, I want to know everyone's overall thoughts on Pride and Prejudice, the musical, and their cheese rating. I'm going to force Andrew to go first so you can kind of guess what our cheese rating structure is. Oh, you've listened to an episode. You've told me this. So you get it.
It's okay.
So, Andrew, you're up first.
Okay. It's not like the best thing I've ever seen or anything like that, but it's a very simple show that is effective, and there's a really good filmed version of, which isn't that common. So I would definitely recommend seeking this out if you can find the film version of it. Is there somewhere they can find this?
Yes, I watched it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on
It's
Amazon.
just on Amazon.
And
oh, right.
if you subscribe to Broadway HD, it's there too.
Oh, excellent. I would definitely recommend watching this. I think it is an effective show. It does a really good job with what it's trying to do, and it doesn't overstay its welcome at all. It's a nice 2 hours, that's all. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
It's a breeze. This musical's a breeze.
I'm gonna give it like a cheese platter, like you'd get at like a fancy party, because there's quite a few fancy parties in this, or there's at least one that I remember, and I think there's probably more, but yeah.
There's a lot more in the book.
Yes. So many dinner parties, dancing.
Picture a fancy platter, and you got some grapes on there, and you got some simple cheeses and some bread, and you pick from that, and it's good.
Some Grey Poupon, like just on there, just because sound fancy. Yeah,
it's something fancy, you know.
All right, Kate, what's your overall thoughts and your cheese rating?
I would say this was a solid musical, speaking from someone who does enjoy musicals but isn't an avid diehard fan. I would say this is a perfect musical to watch if you're just sitting at home and you want to, have like a fun little musical to watch. It's only a little bit over 2 hours. I also would even say you could watch it while you're doing chores, because it's just so, especially if you read the book already, it's such a soothing, very lighthearted musical. So it's, I would say, as far as a cheese rating, I would give this like that block of cheese you want to impress your friends with, but you totally got it for like $5 at Trader Joe's. And then you bring all like the little fancy crackers out, and it's just because it's got all these different little flavors to it. But it's really just the same block of cheese that you've had like a million times before, but it's a comforting kind of, flavor. It's something that you're used to. You're not expecting anything new. It's just a nice flavor.
I like that cheese rating. That's a good one.
That's actually a really, real. The guests always bring the best cheese ratings. I'm not gonna lie.
The only time I ever brought cheese out for a party was when I was sent chocolate cheese by Jess, and it was a disaster. No one liked it.
I did do that.
Oh my goodness.
It's good. It tastes like fudge.
It doesn't taste like cheese at all. It's just fudge. It's basically fudge.
I mean, it's
I don't
cheese
know,
because of the way they make it.
Yeah, but it
I
doesn't.
have a problem with things that taste like other things. Like I don't like pickle flavored popcorn or
Right.
like anything like that where I'm like something like my brain can't compute. It's like, wait, no, this isn't.
Well, it doesn't look like cheese. It looks like fudge. It tastes like fudge, and they make it like cheese. So it was very strange, and it didn't really work.
I disagree. Chocolate cheese is great, and the proper response when someone sends you something is thank you.
I did thank you. My goodness, that was like a year ago now.
2 years ago, my man.
2 years ago, he
We're
sent me
old.
chocolate cheese.
All right, Bree, how would you rate our discussion? What do you think that went?
Well, you guys gave it so much love, but my girl Julie really didn't have the same
That's fair.
opinion as you.
That's fair.
So,
That's fair.
I'm torn here. I want Julie is an actress. So
I'm not an actress.
yeah, you're not an actress. I'm having a very hard time. We've been friends for a while, but I'm having a really hard time deciding how to lean, in this conversation. So the only cheese that I can think of is the cheese that I ate all the time in 8th grade. And in 8th grade, I saw Pride and Prejudice. And so that's going to be that melty Kraft cheese that you dip your pretzels in. And in my case, I don't even know what that cheese is called. Plastic cheese? Do you know what I'm talking
cheese,
about?
yeah.
Government
cheese.
just the it's like food coloring.
It's like the stuff they
Talking
put on
about
nachos.
The cheese that you like dip like the little crackers in.
Like
No,
cheese
like-
that isn't cheese, but probably something else.
Yeah, like cheese you
Like
put on
Cheese Whiz?
nachos.
Yeah.
Like nacho cheese. I'm gonna go with nacho cheese. But when I was in middle school, everyone would get the nacho cheese and the hot Cheetos, and they would dip the hot Cheetos in the nacho cheese. So
That is
that's
the most Michigan thing I have ever heard.
That sounds
most Linkin
disgusting.
Park
I don't understand why you would do that, but
Like, that is the most Detroit thing I have ever heard in my life.
that's
yeah.
terrible.
But I mean, that was what I thought of when I thought of Pride and Prejudice, because I think that was the last time I watched it. Was in 8th grade. So
You should rewatch it. It's a good movie.
I know I should rewatch it. I have a lot of
Or
things.
watch
I
the
need to...
musical. It's pretty good too.
The musical, yes, the musical. We are a musical.
Not according
show.
to Julie.
Look,
Poor
Julie
Julie.
doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm sorry.
Julie and I are friends on Amazon, okay? So
I'm gonna find her, and we're gonna be friends on Facebook. We're gonna like each other's
All right,
statuses
Jess, what
and
did
never
you think?
interact. I like this show a lot. I wouldn't say it's good enough to be replacement value for the 2006 movie, but I also have a really deep connection to that 2006 movie. I like a lot of the songs. I really like the way it was shot. I think this is one of the best filmed stage musicals I have ever seen. Really, I hope that streaming musicals keeps going, especially during this pandemic times when we don't really know when we're gonna be in a theater together. We'll see when that happens, but I thought this was much better than I expected, and overall told the story very quick, concise, and I feel like I didn't lose any of the emotional potency of the story with it being condensed a bit. And the songs work to push the story forward. It has very high highs, and it never gets bad. There's not a single song where I'm like, this is really bad, and even great musicals have that. So the only cheese rating I can give it is not particularly a cheese, but a title of a book by
no.
Mary Jane Hathaway called Pride, Prejudice, and Cheese Grits. Jane Austen Takes the South. Can I just
What?
read you what the description of this book is really quick?
Yeah. I'm
This
interested.
hilarious Southern retelling of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice tells the story of two hard-headed Civil War historians who find that first impressions can be deceiving. Wow. Oh,
Do they
God.
fall in love despite Mr. Darcy being a Confederate?
It's a Shelby Roswell, a Civil War historian and professor, is on a fast track to tenure. That is, until her new book is roasted by the famous historian Ransom Fielding in a national review. Is that Julielle? She wrote this book? With her career stalled by a man she's never met, Shelby struggles to maintain her composure. when she discovers that Fielding has taken a visiting professorship at her small southern college.
I've seen weirder things. I think it is on Amazon. There's a Mormon version of Pride and Prejudice called Pride and Prejudice, a Latter-day Comedy. It does not sound nearly as fascinating as that, but it's not the worst thing I've ever heard.
In the end, does Darcy marry both Jane and Elizabeth?
Oh my god. If they just did that, he just marries all the sisters, that would have been really funny. But no, unfortunately, it's not what happens.
That's a Mormon comedy.
Yes. It's just big love. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Wow, that's a book?
Mormon version.
Yeah, that's a book. With familiar and relatable characters and wit to spare, Pride, Prejudice, and Cheese Grits shows you that love can conquer all, especially when pride, prejudice, love, and cheese grits are involved. So...
Yeah, okay. You know what, Jess? You win. Fine, whatever.
Wow.
To get the library binding version, it's $34.95 on Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Does it give me cheese grits? Does it cook it for me? $34.
No,
oh my
no.
god.
My God. All right, Kate, thank you so much for coming on. I know you've got a lot of stuff on the internet. Chill away. Tell everyone where they can find your wonderful content.
You can find my content on YouTube under That Movie Chick. I like to do video essays surrounding female-led content. I also have a retro camp series where I discuss canceled TV shows and find out why. Sometimes for good reason. And I am also a co-producer, writer, and editor for Lost in Adaptation for the channel Dom Noble, where we compare books to their adaptations, whether they are films or TV. And I am also on Twitter, _That Movie Chick, if you want to talk to me.
Very cool.
She's got a great Twitter. I follow it. It's great. What's up, Andrew?
Did we ever find out why they canceled Alf? I'm still waiting for answers.
Alf?
Could have gone on for another 10 years, you know? So much potential. All right, Kate, thank you so much for coming on. And if you guys want more of our nonsense, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. We're on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Patreon Musicals with Cheese, Instagram Musicals with Cheese, YouTube page Musicals with Cheese. Patreon, we've got a bunch of new crap coming up there. Gallivant podcast. Me and Brie are going to watch the Cheetah Girls and probably a bunch of other DComs. Hopefully, we're going to introduce some guests. And also, how are you liking our Monday podcast, Make Me a Musical, where we make a musical in less than 30 minutes? I think people really like that. But to let us know if you want us to keep doing that. Yeah. Our transcriptions are by Masha Litvin. Our title card was created by Jolene Casco. Follow her on Instagram at Jolene Casco. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. Thank you, Juliet. Our show is produced by the incredible, the beautiful, my favorite person in the world, Brianna Jones. We love you so much, Brianna. You do such a good job in keeping us all afloat. Thank you to the Broadway Podcast Network for having us on the platform and for not kicking us off yet. We know it'll happen one day, but it hasn't happened yet, so we're looking forward to the day.
We'll be the next
Kate, is there
TV
anything...
show.
Kate, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this on up?
I had a blast. This was a lot of fun. I hope I can come back.
Of course, we've got to talk about Jane Eyre.
Yes, of course.
Also, Paul Gordon did a musical on Emma, and I might like to hear your thoughts on that. It's a modern day version. I have not watched it, so I'd be very interested in your opinion on that. But just know you're coming back on the show. You don't have a choice on this matter anymore.
Oh, okay.
You're trapped.
Good to know. Damn, I knew I should have read that contract before I signed it.
You're trapped
Always
now.
with the fine print.
Exactly. And on that note, we'll see you next time on Musicals with Cheese. I'm headstrong, and I've got it long, and I'm Elizabeth Bennet.
Take you on, headstrong, headstrong.
Oh gosh.